Greetings, Christites. Today, we are more than elated to introduce the student achiever and our guest for this episode of C Interview. I am Shiwangi Arya, your host for today. Today's guest is a PS Eco student who has had many accolades when it comes to dealing with a camera. Amandeep Singh has secured the position of a first runner-up in Blossoms and Darpan's Photography Contest 2022. He won iPark through our lens, got featured in We Care magazine, and conducted 3 workshops in our campus. Let us fire this session away with your origin story. So, welcome, Amandeep.
Thank you so much for calling me here.
So, tell me, how did you start your journey with photography?
So, I would say when my mom had a Nokia 305, it was like a Nokia Aarcha 305, small phone, which had 2 buttons, a call denied button and call receive button, and the whole phone was like touchscreen. It had a 2 megapixel camera, and that's how I started to take photos. And it started when I went to Delhi, and I took pictures of like Connaught Place and the crowd around there and my shoes that I newly bought there.
Yeah.
And after that, I think my sister was very keen into like video and like YouTube shorts and stuff. So she bought a Canon 1300D, and I think that's where I started doing photography very seriously. I got into like self-portraits. I used to take pictures of myself, and I used to take pictures of my friends when they used to come around my birthday and my like, festivals.
Yeah.
So that's how I started taking photos, and now it's become a more creative, personal thing for me.
Okay, that's pretty amazing. So, can you recall of a particular timestamp or timeline when you realized that now this is it. Now I have got a hang on photography?
I think my perspective on that is that you never get a perfect grip on photography. I think as a photographer, I've grown way much, like in the last 7 years or 8 years that I've taken pictures. I think the point that you get the hang of photography is when you get the basics right, the exposure, the aperture, the ISO settings. I think from there, it's just a journey where you have to adapt, improvise, and like adapt to situations where you have no idea how to take pictures in, and that's how you learn every single day.
Okay, so you're trying to tell it's more like a process?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in one single day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so who has influenced your work? I mean, can you recall of something like that?
So talking about my influence and like where I got it from, I was like this kid who used to watch YouTube a lot, and on YouTube I used to watch Peter McKinnon a lot.
Sure.
He was like one of the pioneers in cinematography and videography on
Yeah,
YouTube.
definitely.
And through that I discovered a lot more YouTubers who used to shoot POV photographies, editing tutorials, and I just saw all their pictures, and that's where my mind cranked that okay, these are the sort of pictures I need to take, and they were basically my influence.
Okay, that's nice. So so let us talk about that particular gear, photography.
Yeah.
How do you think is an equipment important when it comes to photography for a photographer?
I think equipment matters if you have, okay, I have 2 perspectives on this. So if you are an amateur photographer, you might not need the best like expensive, most like $5,000 camera or like 2 lakh rupees of camera. I think a good DSLR or a good mirrorless camera around the range of 50,000, 70,000 is perfect for you
Sure.
to take everyday pictures. But on the other side, if you are like a professional who wants to make money out of this, then it might be very enticing and like very practical to put money into this and then get the investment back by your creative work and your skills.
Sure. Okay, so moving on, tell us about your inspiration in choosing subjects.
Okay, so this is very weird and very personal. So I have 2 elder sisters.
Okay.
One is around 27, 28 years, and then the eldest one is like 30, 31 years old. So I was very pampered from the childhood. Like back when I was like 7, 8 years old, I was very pampered. And I used to take their advice. They're like my second parents, basically, both of them. So my initial thoughts after like passing out of 12th were, I was a commerce student, so I was like, okay, I'll just take BBA, BCom or something, and then do MBA. I was not very clear about what my intentions were. But then my eldest sister, she left home around like 2014, 2015. So she was out in the field working very hard, like to build her career for like 7, 8 years by then. So she said, no, you have to do sociology and you have to like excel in it. These are the universities you have to go to.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. So she was like my Chanakya. She thought of all the plans, and I was like, okay, I'll just agree to all this, and I went forward to like choosing PSC coaches like psychology, sociology, and economics.
Okay, so this is about that subject. Tell us about your photography ka subjects. How do you see when you click a picture?
Okay.
How do you see your subject? Like, how do you get inspired when you
Okay.
select a particular subject?
I think when I go out on the streets and do photography, like street photography, or even if I'm shooting videos or photos in college, I see people as the main subjects because by to influence people to watch what you shoot or to look at what you have captured
Yeah.
is to incorporate people in themselves
Yeah.
to tell the stories through the pictures because pictures themselves need to have a distinct subject which tells the story and the
Yeah, sure. Picture should speak for itself.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Well, that's a very good practice. Okay, so moving forward, most of our audiences would also, like to know more about photography. There are people who would be watching you just because they love photography.
Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to someone who is just an amateur or starting as a photographer?
I think if you're an amateur, if you're getting into photography right now, I think your best way of doing photography is a phone.
Okay.
Not to invest anything right up front the gate. I think if you don't have the money, if you're willing to learn with the curve, your smartphones are way, way better than they used to be in like 2010 or 2015.
Sure.
I think every smartphone has a raw feature where you can
Yeah.
take pictures in the raw mode. And I think you can start from there. Use your grid lines, like go into settings, fiddle some things. You just experiment with your phone. I started my photography account with my Motorola One Vision, which was like a 16,000 rupees phone, very middle range phone, and it used to take very good pictures in RAW. And that's how I would recommend everyone to start and to get into photography, to click everyday pictures with your phone.
Sure, sure. Okay, so as a photographer, I don't. You must have clicked numerous shots as of
Yeah.
now. Can you recall of like one favorite shot?
I think there are certain categories which require a favorite shot,
Okay.
but I think in this particular question, I think it would be the story behind it. And it's when I was back in my hometown in Kashipur, and I lied to my parents that I'm going to a nearby temple, Girja Mandir, it's called.
Okay.
And I rode till Rani Khet,
Okay.
which was like 150 kilometers away from my
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
And I had called them and I was like, I'm staying here for a day and I'll come back tomorrow. And they were surprisingly okay with it. So
Okay.
I stayed there. I roamed around the area. Rani Khet was absolutely beautiful. I think the trees were amazing. They were tall, they were straight, and there was a lot of greenery there, basically.
Sure.
I found one spot where there was like a bunch of trees, a bunch of tall trees, and the middle there was a lane to go inside, in between the trees.
Okay.
I was like, this should be a shot. So I parked my Splendor and I used the sum of my clothes to like make a very jugadu tripod.
Okay.
And I put my camera there. I put it on timer. It's like a 10-second timer. I have to run, and I ran in between those trees, and then I took the shot, and it was amazing.
Okay, so do you consider yourself as a nature photographer more, or you like everything
I
in
think
general?
I think the main niche of my photography would be street and / portraits.
Okay.
Because I love nature. I love all the other sort of photography. But I think the most easiest way to influence people by a photography is by incorporating people themselves.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main reason that I do photography. That I click pictures of people in like candid shots to tell stories.
Okay, so finally, tell us, where do you see yourself as a photographer in the upcoming few years?
That's a very controversial question for me. So basically, in my head, I have no like set out plan. I have like 3 options in my career options right now, and it's very complicated. But I see photography as a way that even if I do something else in my career, photography will be right back, like going with it.
Okay, you wanna still take it ahead as your hobby, your
Yeah,
passion,
yeah.
along with everything else that you do.
Yeah, unless it becomes very big and I become like Peter McKinnon.
Okay, we hope you do that someday. Okay, so this was Amandeep Singh for you. Thank you so much, Amandeep, for joining us. So this was it for today's episode. See you guys next week. Until then, stay safe. Bye-bye.